The transport ship Aquila hummed quietly as it drifted through the blackness between the stars. For most of the crew, hyperspace travel had long since lost its mystery. They treated it like a long commute. Boring, predictable, a stretch of hours filled with routine checks and maintenance logs. But for Lieutenant Daniel Reeve, new to deep space assignments, every moment still carried a thrill. The view beyond the reinforced observation windows was endless, a canvas of fractured light where stars stretched like glowing threads. He often found himself standing at the viewport after his shift, marveling like a child who hadn't yet grown numb to wonder. This particular evening, however, his attention wasn't fixed on the stars. It was on the figure standing just a few feet away. Ceres. She was one of the Ketheri, an allied alien species whose delegation had joined the Aquila's mission. The Ketheri resembled humans in broad shape. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face, but their features carried an ethereal otherness. Her skin shimmered faintly, like pearl under sunlight, and faint bioluminescent patterns flickered across her temples depending on her emotions. Her eyes, larger than human, glowed faintly silver, as if reflecting galaxies of their own. Daniel had spoken to her only a handful of times, always in formal tones during mission briefings. She wasn't just part of the delegation, she was their cultural envoy, tasked with representing Ketheri traditions to humanity. A diplomat, in other words. Serious, untouchable. And yet here she was, alone in the quiet observation deck, the faint glow of the viewport illuminating her features. Daniel hesitated, running through 100 possible greetings in his head. Most of them sounded either stiff or foolish. Finally, before he could stop himself, he blurted the first thing that came to mind. "You look beautiful today." The words hung in the air like a signal flare in a dark sky. Ceres turned her head sharply, her silver eyes locking onto his. For a heartbeat, Daniel thought he had committed some grave cultural offense. Compliments could mean different things across species, sometimes even insults. He opened his mouth to backpedal, but then, she laughed. Not the polite, diplomatic chuckle he'd expected, but a genuine melodic laugh that seemed to vibrate faintly in the air. The bioluminescent patterns on her temples flared in waves of blue and violet, a ripple of color he recognized as delight. "Beautiful," she repeated, tilting her head. "You choose strange words, Lieutenant Reeve." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, wishing he could rewind time. "I meant it as a compliment. Among humans, it's something kind you say when you admire someone's appearance." Her expression softened, though her silver eyes still studied him with an intensity that made him squirm. "Strange," she said quietly. "No human has spoken to me in that way before. Not even your captain." "Well, maybe your captain needs better manners," Daniel muttered before he could stop himself. This time Ceres's laugh was even brighter. The middle. Over the following days, Daniel noticed a change. Ceres sought him out more often, sometimes during meals, sometimes during off-duty hours. She asked him questions about human customs, about phrases and gestures. "What does it mean," she asked one evening, "when a human gives another flowers?" Daniel explained awkwardly, trying not to picture himself actually giving her any. "And what about when you touch palms?" she pressed, curious. He chuckled. "That's not exactly a custom. Just holding hands means closeness, affection." She seemed to file away every answer like a student studying for an exam. And with each conversation, Daniel realized how different Ceres was from the untouchable diplomat he'd first imagined. She was curious, playful even, with a dry sense of humor. But what startled him most was how much he wanted to keep talking to her. One evening, while they stood again at the observation deck, Saris turned to him with a faint shimmer of green uncertainty. "Lieutenant Reeve," she began, "I must ask, when you called me beautiful, did you speak only from politeness? Or was it truth?" Daniel swallowed hard. He thought of giving the safe answer, the diplomatic answer. But her silver eyes demanded honesty. "It was the truth," he admitted. "You are one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. Not just how you look, but how you carry yourself." I meant every word. For a long moment, Saris was silent. Then, slowly, she reached out and pressed her palm lightly against his. Her skin was warm, softer than he expected. The bioluminescence on her temples glowed a radiant gold, the Ketheri color for trust. "Among my people," she whispered, "this gesture is given only to one who is cherished." Daniel's heart pounded. He barely managed to whisper back, "And what does it mean when a human does this?" Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "I wish to learn." The conflict. Not everyone on the Aquila approved. Whispers began among the crew. A human officer fraternizing with an alien envoy was risky at best, scandalous at worst. The captain himself summoned Daniel one morning. "Lieutenant," Captain Rourke said gravely, "your closeness with Envoy Saris has been noted. I don't need to remind you of the diplomatic sensitivities here." "No, sir," Daniel said stiffly. "She represents her entire species. One misstep could be interpreted as disrespect, or worse, manipulation. You understand?" "Yes, sir." But Daniel couldn't help himself. The more time he spent with Saris, the harder it was to pull away. And when tensions flared between human and Ketheri officers over a disputed navigation route, it was Saris who defended him openly in front of both delegations. "He treats me not as an alien but as a person," she said firmly. "Perhaps your officers would learn from his example." The room went silent. Daniel felt his chest tighten. She hadn't just defended him. She'd risked her diplomatic standing to do so. Later that night, he found her again at the observation deck. "You didn't have to do that," he murmured. Her silver eyes met his. "I wanted to. Do you still not see, Daniel Reeve? Your words that night. They were more than kindness. They opened something in me I did not know was closed." He couldn't reply. Not with words. Instead, he took her hand gently, feeling her warmth pulse against his skin. But just as the moment deepened, alarms blared. The ship shuddered violently, throwing them both to the floor. Climax. An unknown vessel had intercepted them. Pirates, heavily armed. The Aquila jolted as enemy fire struck its shields. Crew members scrambled to battle stations. In the chaos, Daniel and Saris were separated. He fought his way to the weapons bay, manning a turret as boarding alarms screamed. Through the haze of smoke and gunfire, Daniel glimpsed Saris in the hangar, surrounded by boarding pirates. One had a blade raised toward her. Without thinking, Daniel sprinted into the fray. He fought with a desperation he'd never known, disarming one attacker, shielding Saris with his own body. "You shouldn't be here," she cried, her voice breaking. "Neither should you," he shot back. Together they fought, her bioluminescent patterns flaring with fierce determination, his every strike driven by raw instinct. When the last pirate fell, they stood side by side, breathless, alive. The resolution. When the Aquila finally limped to safety, repairs underway, the captain addressed both crews.